Hey, you guys, we're just going to hang out here for a minute until Alec joins us and Brian. Barry, I sent you an invite too. If you missed it, just go ahead and request. You know how this works. How are you doing, Riz?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Arrived safely in Biloxi, so that's a good thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we drove right through the storm, but thankfully, I guess we were on the tail end of how far it went down south, like I don't know, the storm line. So we only rode through it for probably 15 minutes. So I haven't even looked to see what's happened. I didn't get any phone calls, so no news is good news.
Yeah, it's supposed to be real bad tonight, from what I hear.
Let me get Brian up here. I'm going to send a message to here. Okay, Alec just sent me a message. He'll be on in just a moment. Oh, there he is. Let me get him up here. Alec, I sent you a invite. It flashes fast, so if you missed it, just click on the request in the bottom left corner, and we will get you on a microphone. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Sherry. Man, first time at home by the time we're doing the show here. I love being
Awesome.
here instead of out and about. Like so
Awesome.
peaceful.
Let me just make mention to Alec, you cannot come up as a speaker if you are on a browser or on a computer. You have to be on your telephone. So that if you're not on your, there he is.
Hey guys, can you
Okay,
hear me?
perfect. Yes, we can. How are you, Alec?
Awesome. Hey Sherry, thanks for having me, and hi everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for being here for you guys.
Well, we're glad you can join us. Meet my co-host Brian Alec.
Hey, Alec. Nice
Hey
to meet you.
Brian, likewise, man. Nice meeting you too.
All right, I'm going to give you a proper introduction, as they say, Alec. Um, some fun facts. By the age of 19, Alec was playing online and won the biggest online tournament in history at that time. And that year, he made over 100,000 in his poker purse, as they say. At age 21, he became the only player in history to win back-to-back events at the Bellagio, coming in sixth place in the 40K buy-in for 330K and second place in the Heads Up event for over 337,000. Both were WSOP events. If you want to take your game to the next level, I suggest you check out and join Alex. Say that fast. No, don't. Trading site, which is consciouspoker.com. Once on the site, you can access the free downloads to improve your hand reading and pre-flop play. There's a weekly newsletter with hand breakdowns and poker tips. So check out that website, consciouspoker.com. Alec enjoys those nosebleed cash games of Macau and recently returned to tournament play and finished 11th in the 2023 WSOP main event for around 700,000. Our guest's Hendon Mob total live earnings is about 2.2 mil, with his best live cash of 700,000 for that WSOP main event finish. Welcome to our space, Alec. And I'm going to just go ahead and ask you a starting out question. You were formerly sponsored by Doyle's Room. Can you explain what that sponsorship was like, please?
Yeah, that's a cool starting point. So this was early on in my career. I was actually at the Bellagio one day playing like I don't know, it's a Wednesday, and I think the biggest game running was like 25-50 or something. And so we're playing the cash game, and the foreman walks over to me and he says, "Hey, Doyle walked in with a few people. They want to play big at in Bobby's room. In Bobby's room, and they're looking for an extra player to start the game. Like he knew I was playing big online at the time. He's like, "Hey, do you want to play?" So I'm like, "Sure, of course." It's a chance to play with Doyle, play bigger. The game obviously looked good, and so I go play, and I walk into Bobby's room. I've never seen Doyle before, and he's sitting there, and I'm like, "Look, Doyle, it's a Wednesday. I was playing 25-50. I brought 25K to the Bellagio. I don't have any more money. I can't play this big." And he said, or I'm like, I have a half a buy-in or one buy-in or whatever the game was. And he says, no problem. And he just throws me 5 flags, which are like these 25K chips. The 5K chips at the Bellagio. And he says, I'm in for half. And he's never met me before, and that's how I met Doyle. I played in the game. We played till like 3, 4 in the morning, drinking wine and hanging out, having fun. I won in the game too. I paid him his half. And a couple months later, my agent at the time contacted me. He's like, "Hey, Doyle's starting a site, and they'd like you to be the first sponsored pro." So, of course, I accepted. I was very grateful. I got to spend quite a bit of time with Doyle after that. Just, we went to London together to promote the site and do various things. But we developed a relationship, and that was incredibly meaningful because I grew up reading his books. Super System was the first book I read, and read about his escapades and his poker travels. So it's just incredible to. It's like a surreal experience just to have that, be
Yeah.
able to play with him and then win and how it all went down. Yeah, so it was like a dream come true. I mean, that was like one of the highlights of my career, definitely.
That is,
Wow, what a poker story, huh, Brian?
yeah, that is awesome. We are definitely here for that, Alec. That's why
Yeah,
I told Sherry when we first started doing this, like that kind of thing is what we're all about. Like just hearing these cool stories about how things are, and it's kind of funny how the poker world is that way. Like people are very, very trusting, and I'm sure that over the years, probably Doyle got burnt probably a lot of different times, but there was this
probably more than anyone. Yeah,
yeah, there's still this like trust in people. I find it difficult for myself to like loan people money and stuff like that, but it just amazes me, like, you know, how you'll walk in somewhere. There was one time where this person wanted to um sell lamers, and they said, do you want to buy them? I said, yeah, sure, let me go to my box. I met this guy like 2 times. He hands me like $5,000 in lamers, and says, "Oh, go find me at the break." It's just like, what? Are you kidding? Like, where else does this happen?
yeah. The poker world's a unique place, and there's just this like sort of code within the players that you know, like there's kind of like an underlying code of ethics that I think poker players have. I think there's obviously bad actors like there is in any industry, but I would argue that in poker, like everyone's been burned, so I think everyone kind of has like PTSD or battle scars from poker. But I would honestly argue that like the amount of money that's lent and trusted with no recourse nor contracts or any sort of way of getting it back or whatever is way higher than in other industries. And like there's a high payback percentage in poker, I feel like. And I think poker players are by and large, ethical and honest. So I've had bad experiences, obviously, been in poker 20 years, so I kind of, seen everything. But overall, given the nature of the game, it's it's been overall a great experience. But yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. I had a couple of years ago, I had bought like 2% of somebody's name. You shell out 200 and whatever dollars, and then
nice.
so he was at the final table. So now this $200 is like,
Oh yeah,
20 grand, and you're just like, wow, this is a lot of trust that I've got to have in the
Brian,
world.
you are losing signal and kind of coming in and out. Are you
Okay.
using a headphone by any headset by any
No,
chance?
I'll move back to where the
Okay.
connection's better.
Sorry about that, pal. Alec, tell us, do you have a favorite poker room in the world?
yes, I do. Pretty strong conviction as well, but I am also biased. My favorite poker room is the Win, and it's probably because I spent a lot of time in Macau playing at the Wynn, and I just really love that room. It feels like home. And I kind of built a lot of my career there. And then the Wynn also has this incredible sort of ability to recreate the same sort of energy and atmosphere. So when you go to the Wynn in Vegas, it feels a lot like you're at the Wynn Macau, and it's quite incredible. Um, so yeah, I just really love it there, and it's the, all the way down to the details. So I like the action, obviously, so like from a poker standpoint, but even things like the food is incredible, the service they really love, and treat poker players well, but also the lighting and the energy. And I know it sounds like a kind of maybe a weird thing to kind of analyze with a poker room, but like if you play at Aria, for example, which I also like, but it's very dark and it's like dim and it's mood light and it feels almost like being in a romantic restaurant or a nightclub.
It's very
But
true. Very true.
and that's fine. And the Vegas is like that. But when you're there for, 8, 12, 10 hours and you're playing multiple days in a row, and it's during the day, it's not quite the energy that I am most aligned with. But the win, it feels like it's daytime, it's bright, it's fresh. And so it's just, there's a lot of little things about the win, but it's also, like I said, I am biased because I played, you know, thousands plus hours there over the 4 years I was at Macau, and the experience I had there was just so incredible. It's kind of very one of a kind, I think, in poker, and so it just made me have this affinity for the game that I just really like love that place.
And I think you're right on cue when you say the wind is so bright and sunny when you walk in. It just is a light, airy mood. Alec, if you could, um, you're kind of muffled, but then sometimes you come through really loud and clear. So if you can move your mic, maybe your phone, whatever, a little bit,
Is
we
this
would
better?
appreciate that. Go ahead and test it.
Yeah, is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll try and keep it like that.
Alec, about Aria though, have you ever seen, a dollar, $3 game at the Wynn with Alex Keating and Nick Bertucci in it?
Can't say I have.
He's a little biased because I hosted a meetup game for Spaces, I fondly call the Space Invaders or Space Cadets. We met during the WPT at the Aria and had a 1-3 meetup game. So that, and both of those fine gentlemen joined us.
I realized I had
Oh,
to
that's awesome. That's
specify
impressive.
$1, not 1,000.
And they were such great sports, and it was really an awesome day of poker for sure. Do you
Yeah,
prefer
imagine.
online or live poker?
I played a lot of both over my career, but I like some of the
We cannot
flexibility.
hear you.
Hey,
You're
you there?
muffled.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's way better.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, I've
That's
played a
okay.
lot of both throughout my career, but I strongly prefer live. And the reason is because online, you can't see the other people, and so because I think poker is more of a game of people played with cards, I think the human element is crucial, and I think it adds a layer of complexity and depth that is missing online. And so when you add more variables to the game and you add more complexity, I think there's more skill and it's a lot more fun. And I also, I really like people. I'm an extrovert, and so I really enjoy being around others. And I get to have, make new friends and network and meet new people. And that all is possible at the live poker club. And so I think for me, it's like the most fun environment to play in. And yeah, I strongly prefer it. I also think so. I think both from like an emotional standpoint and from a strategic standpoint, it's just a far better variant of poker.
Okay, wherever your microphone is right now, we need to keep it there.
Yeah, I'll personally hold it in my hand. I'm using a pair of
Okay.
headphones. I'm
For
actually
some
sorry.
reason, it's
I
okay.
thought our spaces was tomorrow, so I logged into my Twitter to check something. I was DMing someone, and then I saw your DM, and I'm like, oh my god, like our spaces is today, and I realized I got the date wrong. So I'm
It is
sorry if
no
I'm a
problem.
little out of place here, but anyway,
You are fine. Look,
You just make
one
up
thing
for
I
me.
want you to
Make
know
up
is
for
we're
me, Alec.
We're very informal and we just want to sit and chat. So we have no issue with your crunch timing because there's been a mistake made, and it's not a problem, Alec.
Yeah, that was my mistake. Anyway, I'm glad I can make it, and sorry about the mic issues, guys. My apologies.
No, it is quite okay. Can you tell us, with all the controversy in recent days about the bots and online and cheating and blah blah
Hmm.
blah, what do you think some of the solutions can be with those issues and problems?
Hmm. That's a good question. I'm not sure I have a great answer for that, to be honest. Um, it's an unfortunate thing where I feel like a small minority ruins it for the majority. So I would say that I don't necessarily think it's like every table everyone's playing at, they're getting cheated. I don't necessarily think it's like that. But the problem is that even if it happens with a small frequency and it's a small minority, you don't know which table that's at, and therefore the risk is quite high, and the asymmetry is very like to the downside because if you are getting cheated, you're drawing dead, and so it makes the whole ecosystem suffer from a small minority. I'm not exactly sure I have the best solution, especially because I'm not involved in that niche and ecosystem of like
Right.
daily online grinding as much as other people are. Like I don't, grind online tournaments every Sunday. I don't, play 20 hours of cash games online every week. So I'm not really like thinking about it as much. It's not as much on my radar, but I am empathetic to the people that have, that are affected, and it's really unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that it gives overall poker a bad rep. Um, because like I said, I think it's a very good game, and it's a good ecosystem, and it's a great community. Um, and so I hope that we can find a way to change it, so it's better for everyone.
Of course, and I appreciate your honesty with your thoughts on that. What would you be doing in life if you weren't in the poker world?
Um, well, I guess it depends on at what point I stopped playing poker or that I didn't find poker. I started poker at 16, so I'm 36 now, so but more of my life has been in poker than not in poker. So it's sort of hard to say like where I would be if I never found poker, because I was so impressionable and young at that age that there was a lot of different runouts for my hand, so to speak. I guess today, um, I would say I'm like a part-time pro player in the sense that, well, I'm a dual citizen of Italy. My wife's from there, and so we divide our time between Italy and the U.S. And then within the U.S., we have a couple bases, so we travel quite a bit. And so some of the places that I'm in frequently don't necessarily have like a poker hub. But when I'm in L.A., Vegas, Florida, I play quite a bit of poker, and I'm like very involved in the poker scene. And I'm playing, seriously, like last month in Vegas, maybe I played a bunch of poker, or during the summer in Vegas, of course, I played a lot of poker. But then the times I'm not in poker, I will just be completely out of the game. So when I'm not in poker these days, I'm mainly focused on the investing space. And so I do a few things. I help syndicate deals for early stage startups, and I help them raise money and um, put together SPVs for vehicles for people to invest through my network. And then sometimes I stay on and help consult with them or help them grow or scale or strategize to help them grow their brand and their business. And then I'm involved in, heavily involved in crypto. I would say I spend quite a bit of my time, uh, an advisor for a few projects, and then trading and investing in crypto myself. And so the investing space overall is where I spend quite a bit of time outside of poker, and that's like increasingly becoming more and more um, interesting and lucrative and more of my time. Um, so I would probably be more involved in that, I guess, if poker wasn't at all involved in my life. And yeah, I guess I would just be like more all in than I even am today.
Awesome. I read recently that you are involved with a new startup company, and it is, for lack of a better description, a drink machine, a beverage machine, but I think soups can be brewed in it as well. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. So exactly right. So that's one of the companies that I'm raising capital for.
Oh,
Lose.
we can't
You,
hear you.
you there?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Now we can.
Yeah. So that's one of the companies I'm raising capital for. They have a patented technology. So they have like a machine that they patented, and it's kind of like an espresso machine. So imagine an espresso machine, but imagine that you can make hot and cold beverages through a frozen pod that you stick in the machine. So they have a way to formulate any types of recipes they want. So they can make soups, which are incredible. They can make smoothies. They can make juices. They can make mochas or mushroom coffees or matcha lattes. And so all of this is made through this machine. And you put the frozen pod in the machine, and then you wait, maybe 1 minute. It adds water and air, and it creates this like creamy, frothy drink, depending on what you want. And it's self-cleaning, um, and so it's super cool and it's very easy to use. There's no cleanup or maintenance. And yeah, that's like, a company that I'm really passionate about, because they are making, healthy food more accessible and it's quite easy for anyone to use it. So it's already in, several high-end resorts, but we're in spas and gyms, co-working spaces, offices, um, high-end restaurants, hotels, that sort of thing. And so they're early stage. They had their pilot that went really well, and they're looking to raise capital to scale. So um, I met them through my network, and I secure an allocation and help them raise money through my network. So that's a deal that is I'm raising money for right now. I'm personally investing in all the deals I raise money for as well. So I have skin in the game too. And yeah, it's like very exciting to me because it's an industry I'm super passionate about, like the health and wellness space. For people that follow
Yeah.
me know, I like meditation and exercise and diet, nutrition. Um, Mental health, spiritual health, and so it's really something I love doing, and I want to invest capital in this space, but then also being able to kind of like leverage the time and money I spend by helping the company grow as well. It kind of helps like secure my investment because it makes it more likely that the company is successful, or at
Right.
least do my little part. So yeah, I have an SPV on AngelList, like a vehicle for people to invest through AngelList. You have to be accredited, of course, but through
Right.
AngelList, but the minimum investment is 1K, so it's very accessible for like the average. If someone's an investor, it's very accessible for them to get
Well,
in, and then
You-
we pool the money together and invest it directly with the company.
Do you want to give the name of the company, Alec?
Yeah, the company's called Kubo, and if you follow me on Twitter and scroll back, I put out a video recently about my experience with them. I went to Fiera, which is the biggest hospitality expo in the world in Milan, and they were demoing there, and so I got to try their products, and I filmed a little video about my experience with them. You can scroll back on my Twitter; that's there as well.
And I
And
actually watched that video, and I'm going to tell you,
cool.
even if you're just a busy person on the go, I can see one of those sitting on my counter for a nice hot cup of soup when you're, running around like a crazy mom and businesswoman. So I just love the idea that you can have so many choices and it's self cleaning. And yeah, I highly recommend everybody go watch that video on Alex Twitter page. Go ahead,
Are,
Brian.
are they thinking about doing a non-commercial product too, or just
right. So they're starting B2B, like just, with businesses. And they actually are like Nespresso. I use that example because it's a subscription model. So they don't necessarily they make money on the machines, but they're not necessarily trying to make the majority of their money selling the machines, but it's on the subscription with the pods because you have to use a new pod that, that they create in order to make the beverage. And you could only use their
their
patented pods, right? Only their pods fit in the machine. So they are going B2B first. They're at the Ritz-Carlton and the Westin and the Hilton and some other properties in Southern California. But eventually the goal is to make it retail. So, actually, it's funny you mentioned, Sherry, for you or make a soup or whatever, because the founder, um, has 3 kids, and in the morning he was trying to like, he's an engineer, so he was trying to automate, so to speak, like breakfast and find a way that can make a fast, efficient breakfast because obviously in the morning, 3 kids, you don't have a lot of time. And you also want something healthy. And there's not like a very easy option that doesn't require quite a bit of time, right? Like to make 3 smoothies, it's like a little bit, it's a whole ordeal. And so he couldn't find a machine that did it, so that's why he made it. So ultimately, the vision is to get it into the hands of individuals for their house, so they can make maybe 2, 3 things a day. A juice in the afternoon, a coffee in the morning, a soup in the evening, and then they will just use the pods as a subscription model. So it's a food tech company with a subscription model. So
Wow.
yeah, it's quite interesting, but I think it'll get to that point um, after we go B2B. Yeah, that's the goal.
Awesome. I really was intrigued by that video. And I'm not kidding when I
That's
say I could
cool.
see that machine on my counter. And I'll send you the picture when that happens. Tell us about your website, Conscious Poker, and what your goals are, or what do you want to achieve in the way of helping others with that site, please?
Sure. So thanks for the question. Yeah, Conscious Poker is my poker training site. Um, but I guess the distinction I would make, because I know there's a lot of training sites, and also I'm aware that a lot of them are doing great things. They have great content. But I would say that probably the distinction is most I guess if I could stereotype, most poker training, whether it's software or videos or content, is catered to. Uh, it's kind of ironic, but it's catered to like a very small minority of people that play poker. So if you think about poker players as a huge circle, right? You draw a big circle around a piece of paper, and then you take one small slice of that circle that are people that are driven monetarily to play poker to make money. Most of poker strategy and SaaS businesses and poker content is catered to those people that want to like make more money, or they want to be professionals. Um, and so we believe that that's a really small part of the market, and the real market and the vision is to help everyday people, right? Businessmen, athletes, CEOs, like um, people that benefit from the principles that poker can teach, to help those people make better decisions through the game of poker. So it's, yes, we teach strategy, and most of our content is strategy, and we are starting with kind of like Kubo is starting with the B2B market and eventually going to retail. We did start mainly with people that are very driven to profit from poker, and that's fine. But what people experience as they go deeper down the training and deeper down the rabbit hole, and they get better and better at poker, I believe if you stick with poker long enough, it becomes a, uh, a measuring stick, and the money actually becomes more and more distant from motivation because it becomes more about measuring progress, and the journey itself becomes the the joy. And when that happens, people start to realize, oh wow, in order to win the money that I want to win, I actually have to focus on all these other things. And the other things is where it gets really exciting for us. And that's kind of like the deeper level of helping people make better decisions. So for example, um, you have to be really good at bankroll management. And if you're really good at bankroll management, you think differently about your personal finances as well. You think differently about your investments. You think differently about your spending habits because you're starting to manage your capital differently in poker. And that same skill bleeds over into your personal life because we help teach people how to treat poker like a business. And if you're a very good business operator, um, people's personal finances, people's businesses, people, other areas of their life improve as well. There's many examples of this. Like if you want to um, work on the mental game, like tilt control, you want to be more focused or concentrated or perform better at the table. You might need to do other things in your life that will help you in other aspects. You might need to eat healthier. You might want to meditate or sleep better or exercise or work out or fast or become more disciplined or less reactive or have less ego and less emotional and have more emotional mastery. And if you can do that, then you will maybe you'll benefit in poker by making a couple grand a month. But maybe if you are a high performer of some kind, you might make an extra 20 or 30 or 200 or 300,000 doing something else. And so I think that the principles that poker teach are more important than um, they're more applicable to other areas of life than they are to poker. And so I think that's the real win. It's getting to the point where we can get to a mainstream sort of audience and adoption, and we can teach not only strategically like which ranges to play from which positions and which three bet bet sizing, and that's sexy and that's fun and that's sort of the bait, but as you go deeper, I think you can start to learn a lot of other things that are really helpful and useful for everyday life that apply to life, business, investing, decision making, emotional mastery, stress management, and that sort of thing as well. And so I think that's more like where we're trying to go and where the vision is, and why I'm so passionate about like coaching and teaching and creating poker content, because I just think the more people that play poker and that stick with it will ultimately end up having to master these things. Because on a long enough time horizon, there's only really two outcomes. You either quit and you kind of like, you know, you quit the game because you can't win, or you level up your character to the point where you can win the game, and you figure out how to master these other elements. And so um, that's what's really exciting to me, is to help people like push people along on that journey. Um, and so, yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about with the training side of things. But I would
That's
say, just real quick, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
please do. No, no, go ahead.
Like,
No, no, you're
if
good.
someone comes to the site, like, and they want to buy a product, like our membership, for example, is like, you know, it's all about strategy. So it's all a product that's taken in a linear order to help people um, learn poker. So it's like a linear step-by-step product to help people go from 0 to 1 on how to win at poker. So it's like, it's all strategy content. And that's all of our like most of our content in our training is like that now. But we're bridging out into these other areas in the future. So that's kind of more of the direction we're going. But in general, people will find strategy content on our site. Yeah.
And that's again consciouspoker.com. Alec, do you want to make mention to any pros that you have working with you on that site?
So I've worked with other sub coaches that have coached their clients, but they're pro players who I have coached that now coached other people. Um, so we don't have the traditional model of having a bunch of other coaches on the site that are like mainstream.
Right.
Um, and it's largely also because from a business standpoint, it's a lot to manage personally. So yeah, it's mainly like private coaching that I do, and then group coaching that I do as well. And then we have other coaches that are in our community that are responding to um, comments and questions and hands that people post. So if someone posts a hand in our community, I'll be able to respond hopefully as well. But there'll also be our other coaches that will respond in there as well. So they have like multiple angles of feedback. And the cool thing is that the coaches that I've coached that are playing play in the games that the players in our community are playing in. So, you know, while it's cool to have a lot of high stakes players that are extremely talented and that play very high stakes or big games, um, what's also helpful is to have the balance of someone that actually plays the exploitative nature of a 2-5 game. Because frankly, one of the questions I get from clients
Right.
that work with me that play 2-5 is like, hey, how often do you play 2-5? Like, do you understand how the games play at my level? And I do, because sometimes I play 2-5 with meetup games and clients. But some of our coaches are, making, maybe they're the best 2-5 player at their casino. And maybe they make, maybe $75 an hour, 100, whatever, playing 2-5. So it's also helpful to have an exploitative perspective of someone that's actually in the streets of where our target audience is trying to improve. So I think that's another unique angle we offer too. That's
Well,
actually it's actually very helpful.
and I wanted to touch on that because your site isn't the traditional, we have 20 pros all in, you can figure out which one you want to work with kind of thing, where you kind of subcontract, so to speak, to fit the need of that conversation. And I think that to me that's kind of like a real time hands on coaching point of view, or or method of operation versus a class where you're just, listening to, dry delivered information. So I think the real time aspect of that is really awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would say like maybe the other thing that I think is unique is so poker is one of those games where um, if you just like break down a hand or correct your strategy with a certain hand, it's helpful, but it's not necessarily going to transfer over to other elements of your game. So what we focus on is like conceptual based learning. So for example, we have our membership and so you do poker fundamentals, you do pre-flop mastery, mastering poker math, and hand reading. Those are like the four that no matter what games you play or what stakes you play, you need to know these four things and you need to know them very well. Right? You need to know all four of these things. But instead of just breaking down a hand and saying, this is how we also have that content. We have 100 or 150 videos on hand reviews. But instead of just saying, here's how to this hand with jacks, you raise, and the flop comes 10-7-4, and you bet, and the turn comes a queen, and you check, which is helpful. But what's at least more multiples helpful than that is saying, hey, the reason you're checking this flop is this, and if you have this hand in this situation, this is how you think about that from a first principle standpoint. And then you kind of teach people how to think, and you teach people how to fish instead of teaching them to catch the fish for them. So that's kind of our approach, and I think that's very helpful because no two situations in poker are the same. And when people learn how to think about the game and the approach through like the high level content, I think the individual hand reviews sort of become a lot more clear and they start to make more sense. And then some of the questions that people have, they kind of answer themselves because they learn more fundamental approach to the game. So that's how I try and approach coaching or content is always to make it conceptual.
Love that. I love that. We have a question in our chat from Maddie S., and I hope you're doing well, Maddie. He said his questioner, he's asking us to tell you or ask you to please tell some of the perky schmirky stories.
Okay. So I was in a lot of
We cannot hear you, Alec. We cannot hear you.
Yeah, I think you're away from your Wi-Fi or something. It was kind of breaking up,
You there?
or switch. Yeah, there you
Hello?
are. You're back.
You're back.
Yes, I
Yeah,
was playing.
it's not about.
Fair enough. I was playing a lot of high stakes poker online. This was maybe the years all blend together. It's 2008, and I was playing heads up with this guy online, and it's actually in Germany at the time. And we played a lot of online poker together. And his name was Perky Schmirky, and so infamous, high stakes online, whale at the time. And playing heads up, and I won this session, and we would just, habitually trash talk each other in chat. I don't have this friendly, competitive relationship.
Oh, you're cutting out again, Alec. Alec, you're cutting out again. You're cutting out again, Alec. Sorry.
No, it's my fault. Sorry, guys. You there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm connected to Wi-Fi. Sorry. So we would trash talk each other all the time in the chat, and we kind of had this friendly banter, but was also competitive because we would periodically play each other heads up, over the course of months, and we played for large sums of money, and so this was just kind of like the nature of our relationship. So it got to the point in the chat where like he was basically saying like you're this online kid but there's no way you could ever win at live poker. I don't like this online shit, but you'll never beat me live. Whatever. And so we're trash talking, and I'm like, of course, I'll play you live. I would beat you, and he's like, whatever. And he's like, come play me live, in New York. And I'm like, okay, well, um, somehow I don't know. It's so long ago. It's 2007. I forgot like exact details, but somehow, um, oh no. So Tom Dwan was in New York at the time, and somehow I text Tom and I'm like, hey, this guy wants to play heads up. He would play with him as well. And I was like, hey, he was on a layover going back home to Boston. I was like, hey, Tom, I'm going to come to New York. This guy wants to play heads up. Um, just stay there and get a hotel like on your layover. Just, skip your next flight or whatever. And I'll come to New York and we'll play heads up. And so, um, I left Germany like maybe the next day or whenever I could find a flight, shortly after I arrived in New York and we play heads up in someone's apartment in New York. And it was me, Tom, and one other guy that was a high stakes online player at the time. And we just took turns playing this guy heads up freeze outs. I think it was like, I don't remember, 50K or 100K each at the time. Like each match was like the same amount. And we just like took turns rotating to play him. And actually, he actually played like pretty well heads up live. Uh, I think I should remember this, but I won, and I think someone else lost, and so like the three of us like broke even against him, or like whatever. But yeah, we would just have this like very unique relationship where it was like we just trash talked each other and played heads up against each other. Ultimately, at some point, I played him heads up online, and I won a bunch, and so I bought a car and I put my license plate. This was sort of embarrassing to say now. I'm 36, but I was maybe 20 at the time, and I put TY Perky on my license plate of my new BMW that I bought because he like sort of paid for the car.
I love that level of petty. Thank you, Alec.
Yeah, yeah. This is quite embarrassing in my 30s, but I did a lot of young stupid stuff in my 20s. But this
I
was
do that shit now, and I'm a lot older than you. I would
nice.
still do that petty shit, Alec.
I picked him up in my car one time, and
Oh my God.
he was amused by it. It was like a friendly shit talking banter
Yeah,
that we had.
Of
But
course.
yeah. Anyway, yeah,
that's
those were good times. I should write more stories about my old poker days.
I'm just going to say to you that you should just start journaling those stories.
Yeah,
So that one day maybe you'll decide to do a book and you'll already have written it.
so I actually am like partway through a book I've written about my life playing, mainly high stakes poker in Macau as like the the frontline plot, so like the
Right.
the center plot, and then the secondary plot are like these, flashback stories of, how I got to that point basically, or how the main character got to that point. And so, yeah, this would be one of them. But I feel like those early stories go lost. Like even now, this is 2007 and it's 2024. So some of the details evade me, like, exactly how much we played or like, the
yeah,
sequence of events or whatever, it's like, 15 years go by. It's like, you kind of don't remember exactly like it was. And so you're right. I'm mindful of that even today. Like, I think, I'm 36 now, but one day I'll be 51 and what's happening today that I'm going to forget as well. And I think there's like hopefully a lesson everyone could take away is like these are the good old days. Like you don't think of today like a significant moment, but in 15 years today becomes significant. And so I think about that. I'm like more mindful of that now as I'm a little older and
Well, and
hopefully a little more mature.
let's not forget that children down the road with your last name will have the opportunity to read those journals and see your path in life, right? And see some of those details that maybe have faded in your mind and you don't think about or talk about anymore, but they get a glimpse of it 20 years from now. So it's really kind of a treasure trove for your children.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think writing is really cool because when I do get time to write, like when I'm in Italy and I'm a little less engaged with poker and business and investing and whatever, um, it's cool because you go back to these moments and you have to write about them, and so you're forced to like recall all the details. And as you're writing, you kind of bring those details back to life, and you sort of for a moment you get to relive the emotions of that experience because in order to write about something, you have to be emotionally connected to it. And
yeah,
so it's been really rewarding to be able to do this little part of that I've written, because a lot of these older moments I get to like relive those feelings again, and some of them are challenging when I'm writing about losing, going on a huge downswing and losing a large part of
Sure.
my bankroll when I was 19. It's painful, but I think it's really cool, and so that's been really rewarding as well.
That's awesome. We'll look forward to that book getting published one day. I'm going to just do a
Yeah,
little bit
I
of
hope so
house
too.
cleaning. I'm sorry about that. A little bit of house cleaning, folks. Don't forget to check out our sponsor's website at Elevated Results for your fitness needs. If you need to lose weight or gain weight, the folks at Elevated Results can help you. Also, don't forget our second official meetup game is February the 12th at Best Bet Monument with a live feed table, which that'll be the first live feed table for our Spaces group. So that is exciting. So that is February the 12th. Please RSVP if you want to be on that live feed table. And if you'd like to donate some items to the Splash the Pots for that event, we would need 4 of those items, one for each of the 4 tables. Now, Alec, well, I shouldn't say we because Brian is just along for the ride on this one, but I like to do a rapid fire with our guests. So if you will humor me, I'm going to give you 2 options. Please choose one of them.
Okay, go ahead.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Football or basketball?
Oh gosh. Um, I haven't watched a sports game in like 10 years. I basketball.
Beach or mountains?
I guess I live on the beach and grew up on the beach, so I'd say the mountains. But if I'm being objective, the beach.
Boxers, boxers or briefs?
um, Boxers.
Pocket jacks or ace king?
Um, I mean, the obvious answer is Jacks, because they have an edge. But um, philosophically, I like Ace King because I find, and this is kind of like reflection of how I see things, like with Jacks, if you notice, your thought process is probably similar to mine or many people I've worked with. With Jacks, you're always hoping that your opponent doesn't improve, whereas Ace King, you're always hoping that you improve. And I find it's better to be on the latter side of life than the former. So I like having Ace King more than Jacks, but if I had to run, a million Sims, I'd take Jacks. Anyway,
Well, I'm just going to tell you that my book one day is going to be called The Journey of Jacks, just an
nice,
FYI.
love it. Okay.
Brian, do you have any more questions for Alec?
Yeah, I was going to ask him about bringing up a random, changing the name of the person to protect the innocent, to something random like Snoop Dogg and talking about bubbling tournaments, but Snoop Dogg left, so we won't talk about that. Um, yeah, actually, so okay, so here's the thing about Sherry and I. Sherry loves Doyle stories, and I love main event deep run stories. So you're like the perfect guest, I think.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, so I wanted to, hear a little bit about the deep run and thoughts and what happened, or what that was like.
Well, so I don't play many tournaments. I played a lot early in my career, and I've studied a lot, and I enjoy tournaments, but I just don't compete in them that often, because I mainly, from a business standpoint, I mainly, in an hourly standpoint, I mainly play cash games. But
Yeah.
so my last tournament was 2019 Maine. It was the last time I played a tournament.
Oh,
But I decided to play a tournament mainly from like an impulsive sort of lifestyle standpoint. We were going back to Europe, and it just so happened that we could ended up stopping in Monaco on the way back to where we were going in Italy, and so it kind of felt like an exciting opportunity to go back to Monaco and play a tournament. And so I played the tournament in Monaco. This was like in May of 2023, and
yeah.
I built up a big stack. I was doing really well. I was close to the money, and I was on day two, and I had this very, very tough spot, which kind of I still end up thinking about quite a bit, and I'm not sure I found the best solution for it. But anyway, I ended up
Yeah.
busting in this kind of shitty spot that I didn't necessarily have to bust. Obviously, I didn't have to bust.
Yeah.
And I actually had jacks, by the way, so I got wrecked. And this just put me on, like, I just was like beside myself that I like busted with this jacks in this spot. And
Right.
then, I was like, kind of got re-inspired for tournaments, and I was like, there's a lot of opportunity here, and it's really fun, and I like the competition. And in poker, you when you do something a long time, you have to find new ways to make it exciting, because if you're not learning and you're not growing, it's hard to be your best or perform your best. So
Right.
I was in cash games a long time, and playing in private games, playing on the hustler, doing other things. And so I was like, you know what, like, I want to make my goal for the summer to win the main event. And so I went back to Italy, and I spent, 2 months playing tournaments online, and, studying and visualizing, and just like really, getting in shape, like physically, for, 7, 8 day event. And I really like channeled, all my energy over the summer to this vision, this outcome of, making the final table of the main. And so I show up to the main, I land on, I go to London, from Italy to go to London, and then we go to Vegas, and I land on like July 2nd. And I go to sleep.
Wow.
The next day I get up, I only played the main. I didn't play any other events because, that wasn't part of my focus. And I didn't want to dilute my focus, by,
Yeah.
shifting energy to all these other things when it's already a big enough hurdle to try and, just do one thing, which is, the main. And so, it was really surreal, because like, as I was getting further and further, it was like, closer and closer to what I had like kind of imagined and visualized and prepared for all summer. Um, and so it was like this really sort of surreal experience that, I felt like I had already kind of lived this. I kind of did the opposite of what I do in writing, where you relive an experience that you've
Right.
already had. I felt like I was living an experience that I had already imagined. And so that was a really cool, like, euphoric, sort of surreal, type of feeling. And then, you know, as I got deeper, it was like all the days and the moments and the hands, it all sort of blended together, and it was like it as much as I try, especially when I'm competing, I feel like um, I've worked on a lot on myself to be very, very focused and present, such that I'm completely in the zone and I'm locked in when I'm playing. But because of that, the only thing that I was like thinking about or doing were like all the individual hands of poker. And I would say that it was like one of those experiences in life where I was like so connected and focused and in tune with, you know, the world around me and what I was doing, and the people, and the environment and the hands, that I
Right.
sort of lost track of like the rest. And it's like, now it's almost like a little bit of a blur, like day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8. Like I mean, day 8, I remember distinctly because it was day 8, but day 5, day 6, day 7, because I was so like in a different
In it. Yeah.
level, like mentally, those days are almost like it's almost like a blur at this point. And it was just a unique experience where, I felt like I was able, like, I pushed myself to compete on a different level than I had in the past. And that was a really cool feeling to challenge myself. And there was a lot of things I learned, and a lot of things mistakes I made, and things I could do better. And so it was really cool, because it was a new kind of opportunity for me to grow as a poker player and find ways that I can, get level up my character, and do all these things that would require me to be better. And so it's motivating as well, because, I think, okay, I got 11. And um, so, how do I do better than that next year, which sets the bar, or in the future years, which sets the bar really high, but that makes, the dream and the vision worth striving for. And so, that's been really fun. It's just like, setting that bar, very high, and working towards that. And, yeah, it was definitely a dream come true. I mean, I obviously wish I would have won. And obviously, when you don't win in a tournament, you always think about all the things you could have done differently. But there's a lot of things that, I did right to get to that point. And so you can't, you have to also have a little bit of the, being forgiving. But overall, it's like a very positive experience about the main. I felt like am sad that I didn't win. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'm also sort of delusionally hopeful that it's not my best finish, and this was kind of just like a test run, and so like that kind of keeps me going. Whereas if I felt like all hope was lost and this was my only chance ever to get that deep and I'll never do it again, I'd be a little bit more, maybe I'd have a little bit more pain. But like I said, I'm maybe like delusional a little bit, but optimistic, let's say. Um, but hopefully, I believe I can, maybe have at least have a chance to do better. But I think as a poker player, you have to have a little bit of that. Um, you have to let yourself dream a little bit because otherwise it's just you you don't want to live the rest of your career thinking like I blew my one chance to win this fucking thing. So yeah, that's how I'm trying to just kind of keep myself driven to move forward and get better as opposed to uh looking back on it like I missed the opportunity. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to say to you, congratulations on your 11th place finish out of over 10,000 people.
Yeah, thank
Quite
you.
a feat, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy thing about poker is you come in 11th and then there's the kind of letdown feeling, but also, I think I mean, I guess it's really a question like was there a period of time where you kind of feel let down and then you start coming to the reality like I just won 700 grand, or whatever it was, and like just what a awesome experience it really was. Like sounds like now you can look at it and say, wow, what a positive experience overall. But in the moment, maybe you're just kind of bummed out a little bit.
Well, so day 7 I was fifth in chips with 49 left.
Yeah,
um and I ended day 7 13th out of 15th. And so, some would say, okay, that's great, you made it to day 8.
yeah,
But for me, I knew that that day was like the day of the main that I could have done better, right? Like I could have finished top 5 out of 15, and I should have. Or at
yeah.
least I look at everything in poker like my fault or my responsibility. So that also keeps me growing. But that day was really hard, and after that day, um, you know I felt just kind of lucky to get through, and like I could have busted. And so that day was the day that I had the most um, of the challenging feelings. And then when I
Yeah.
got to day 8, I really realigned my energy and got back focused. Um, Not that I wasn't focused on day 7, but I got to the point where I was like kind of on a free roll mentally because I knew that I could have busted day 7. and
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the downfall, like the hardest day, was day 7. On day 8, um, I almost felt like I'm kind of on a free roll. I'm just lucky to be
Yeah.
in. I had no more pressure because I was 13 out of 15, so I'm supposed to lose because I'm last place, right? So there was no more pressure, and so it was very easy to navigate day 8. And I'm not saying that from like all the players were bad and I'm good. I'm just saying mentally I was in a place where I had nothing to lose. So there's no downside when you're already. Um, but
And
looking back on the tournament, I mainly look back on day 7 and think like, what are the things I could have done differently? But
not end up there.
I mean, I also look back at it and say, like, I hadn't played a tournament in 4 years. I played one tournament, before that in 4 years, and this also hasn't been like what I've dedicated my life to is like, running around playing tournament poker, and so like to go from, playing 0 tournaments in 4. My last tournament was actually the main event in 2019. I busted with Jax, which is ironic because I busted this tournament with Jax, but to go from that to busting Monaco, which I also busted with Jax, but just going from that to spending like Monaco ended in May and the main was in July, and putting all of my energy and attention on this outcome, and I didn't get there. I definitely didn't get there, but I got close, and to see like how fast and how real that result transpired. It's I feel more empowered and optimistic than I do upset.
Yeah, that's good.
But I do think that I definitely could have had a better result if I made different decisions, and I take full responsibility for that. So I think there is some some challenge and burden, but I try and live in that. Like I said, I think the unlock for me is like if I live too much in that, you know, mental pattern of Alec, you blew it. This is your one chance. You should have
Yeah.
folded this hand and you could have three bet this hand or whatever, and you could have shoved in this spot and you would have got final table or you would have got first or second or whatever. Um, I switch my mind and my focus back to okay, what is my future desired outcome? What do I want to happen? How am I going to get better in the future? You know, how can I have better stamina or cardio or mental game or strategy to have a better outcome? And that shift is empowering, and then I focus on what I can control and what I want to happen in my life, and I feel like it's a positive headspace. So I think all of the negative headspace is an opportunity to like shift to the positive. And so that's kind of the game. That's kind of like the opportunity of growth for me and what I try and focus on. So it is an ebb and flow, but I try and stay more in the positive than the negative, and that keeps me going.
Okay, I'm going
Well,
to give you my best coaching advice.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
My best coaching advice, and from our listeners, they'll get it because they've heard me say it a million times. Fold those fucking pocket jacks pre-flop and they won't cost you anything. Thank you and you're welcome.
Yeah, I should have done that in Monaco.
um,
Oh, those
You're right.
jacks.
Alec,
Now you know.
Alec, I think in general, watching the coverage there at the end, and from what I remember, you were short for a little while, right? Like you were grinding, like really, really short, weren't you, toward the end?
So I actually, this might sound silly, but I don't know what you saw because I haven't seen the coverage, so I haven't seen any of
Oh,
the main event on TV. But and I don't know when they started covering me. So I just don't know. But
yeah, that's
on
well, I
day
think I watched
seven,
it live. I think I
right?
watched
So
it.
on day seven, I started out as fifth out of 49, and I
Yeah,
sort of dwindled down that day as more and more people got eliminated, and my stack was going down. So like my position was going down, even though the number of players was decreasing, but my
right.
position relative to the number of players was going down. So I kind of had this like downward trajectory, mostly downward on day seven, and yeah, I did end up in a spot. So in tournament poker, um, my clients some people come to me and they say, well, Alec, I never get cans late in a tournament and then I have to bust, I have to go all in, or I always lose my flips late in a tournament. And so my response is, well, it's your fault you didn't have more chips to withstand the variance. And so when you
Right.
have no chips or you're short, you rely a lot on luck. But my strategy throughout the main event and what I worked on was how do I win chips, without cards or without showdown or without variance so that when I do have to go all in or someone else has to go all in or I have to, you know, make a double barrel or take a risk, I have enough chips that it doesn't affect me. And so
Yeah.
I had that level of security. And then on day seven, I didn't have it. And that's kind of when the coverage picked up. So I ended up having to grind, um, in a different way. And it's not the strategy I like to play. I was outside and it's not in my comfort zone. It's not the way I like to play poker. It's not where I want to be. It's not where anyone wants to be in a tournament, but it's also not,
Yeah.
my favorite, stack depth isn't 18 big blinds. And so I ended up having to play that stack for a lot of day seven and day eight. And yeah, it's a lot less
Just
fun, more
try.
frustrating. Yeah, definitely was in total
You know,
grind mode for a lot of
I
that.
I think the main out of any tournament I've played, when you get down below 20 big, I don't know, it feels like, especially like where you're at. By the time you're toward day seven or whatever, you're not sitting there. Everybody's at least competent, like everybody, like maybe day one you might have a few people, but like by that point, like you've got to be like, you know, there's a pretty tough field left. The thing is, like, I think that, and I'm not saying that from experience. I'm just saying, like, even on day three or whatever, like, I think I've made it to day four.
Yep,
Um, but
nice.
but like day three, right? I remember sitting there, and it felt like I had under 20 big blinds for all of day three and then maybe half of day four.
Yep,
Because every time I put any chips in the pot, like I was almost gonna play for my whole stack. Like like it felt like you're in that position, like all the time. Like you raise pre, you're getting, three or four bet, like it's coming back around to you. Like you're either like so they're like always you're always going to get pressured more. It seems like in the main, and it's such a tough spot to be in, and this
Totally.
grind, you know. Like I was telling Ari Engel was on with us one like about a couple months ago, and I was telling like one of the times in the main was like that, and he's sitting to my left, and like every single time I raised free, he three bet me or four bet me, like it's just like every single time, and when you're short, it's tough. It's really tough. I don't think any like other events at the World Series it didn't feel like that, but I think like everybody being really deep at the beginning, it feels like that too. The other thing that I want to say, it feels like the main of all tournaments, like cash game players are like really suited for it.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
just I think it's just you're used to playing super deep, and that's not something that necessarily in a tournament people like lose their mind. They get down to 20 bigs or 30 bigs, and they're like really dejected and almost blow up like half the time. So anyway.
All right, let me just interject for a minute, Brian. If any of our audience members have any questions or comments for Alec, please come and press on that mic button, that request button in the bottom left corner of your screen, and come up and join us on the microphone and ask your questions or give us your comments.
While we're waiting for if anybody has any questions, one other thing I want to say, I think you represented yourself very well on the coverage. Like in general, I was telling Sherry this earlier. In general, if I didn't know who you were, before the whole thing, I would have just genuinely thought like, dang, that like this guy's a really nice guy. Not that I think any different, but
Well, thank
but
you. I appreciate that, and I'm
but,
glad.
but
Like I
yeah.
said, I haven't watched it, so that's always encouraging to hear that it came across that way because I feel that way, but it's also nice that it was interpreted that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I'm going
Um,
to welcome one of our listeners, Todd Rizzo, to the microphone. Go ahead, Todd. Meet
Hi,
Alec.
Todd. Yeah, hey, Todd.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Hey Alec, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. My question is, what would you say is your most valuable lesson that you've learned throughout your poker journey thus far?
Wow,
Great question.
most valuable. Mm, probably the most valuable thing is just that poker, I think, um, is really one of the best games because in other games, in other sports, in other competitive games, and not to take away from them, and they're very challenging in a lot of their own respects. They have a physical component or whatever. But in poker, um, in other games, you have like social consciousness. You have other people that are rooting for you or cheering for you or helping you, coaching you, talking to you, getting you excited. And so if you don't believe in yourself, someone else can believe in you enough to get you to believe in yourself, right? But in poker, all of that is self-generated, especially in a game like poker where, it's already hard enough to get, faith in other people that don't know poker. They have, their biases towards what poker is or their beliefs about poker and what it is. And so in poker, what I've learned through the years is that the um, the growth and the challenge is that you're always thrown these hard pitches and curveballs because you can lose even if you're good. You can go on downswings even if you're good. You can lose when you're supposed to win. So it's always like, the way I look at it is it's always like a temptation from the universe to, challenge what you believe about yourself. But I noticed that like poker has taught me a lot to believe in myself and the importance of betting on myself and like the required sort of strength I think and resilience you need to keep going in poker in the face of all the adversity that you're inevitably going to face is a really important skill that helps in other areas of life. And I think the confidence that poker has given me that like I am talented and good and I could win at this game has also kind of bled over into other things that like on a more macro or fundamental level, it's like, hey, if I put my mind to something and I really want something, like I can get it. And I think that like I don't want to call it a skill because it's more like a belief, but that um, like principle that I've taken and I've learned and grown to have and gotten from poker is like probably the most important thing because if when I do other things or when I start other things, you know I'm not really like too concerned about failing or how I'm going to look or like what other people are going to think. And a lot of times I try things and fail. So for example, I'm doing this SPV with Kubo. I'm really excited. We've raised 6 figures for the company. But my first SPV, I tried with a different company and, the macro climate was different and, my network was different, whatever, but I didn't end up closing the deal. But because I know that like, hey, I might lose my first hand of poker, my first session or my first month, but eventually I'm going to fucking win. Like eventually I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to win. I kind of just said, okay, hey, what did I do wrong with this SPV? Why did this investment not go well? Or when I make my own investments in crypto, whatever, like, why did this not go well? Why did I not win? And then, I keep at it until I figure out a strategy to win. But having that belief that I ultimately could do it at the end, is what kind of got me to the second round, with this new SPV, with Kubo, with this new investment. But, that's applied to a lot of things in my life. And I think learning that in poker has been, the most impactful lesson.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, yeah, it makes sense because with when you have that self belief, you get all that confidence, and it definitely pushes you further along and keeps you going for sure. Thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good question, my man. That's a great question.
Brian Robb, please meet Alec.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Alec, great talking to you, man.
Likewise.
Appreciate the opportunity. So, just have I guess, a couple of comments, and hopefully I can string a question in here. And I apologize if you've gotten this before, because I'm sure you probably have. I'm not sure with your clientele and your coaching students if a lot of them are regs/recs, but it's just something that I find myself thinking about a lot at the table and always wondered about this. So where poker's gotten today we're basically solved with GTO solvers and there's endless coaching theory out there. But I always find myself thinking about the difference between the right answer in the solved poker and the coaching theory and the reality in terms of a rec player, right? So I'm a rec player, becoming more of a reg. I'm having a lot more time to play recently, but I just wonder if you could comment a little bit about the difference between the solve poker and the coaching theory and what you're supposed to do versus reality. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The theory says that there's a lot of underlying assumptions that people are going to do what they're supposed to do, and people are going to raise when they're supposed to raise. They're going to fold when they're supposed to fold, and they're not going to slow play when they're not supposed to slow play. But the reality is, people are freaking crazy. People do crazy things. I had a guy the other night just look me in the eye and overbet the hell out of the river and try to make me fold. I called him with middle pair, and he was tilted and he was off his rocker, and it was just the right time. And then another thing is, a lot of the theory that I listen to and that I learn and read about, it's based on large number of hands and long-term strategy. Especially when I hear a lot from a lot of different people and coaches. If you do this, you're going to be exploitable, or you're going to be easy to play against. When the reality is, I've been playing a lot, and I think there's only one, maybe two or three people that I see regularly at the table. So I don't really play against opponents that are going to recognize, oh, this guy 3 weeks ago did this, so I'm
Yeah,
going to do
most
this
people
against
don't.
him, right? That's right.
Most people don't. Yeah.
So what's your opinion between the reality of a occasional /rec player like myself and the balance between what I'm supposed to do at the table and what I know I'm supposed to do because I've studied, and what what I got to do in the moment, right? I always find myself battling with reality versus the right thing to
Yep.
do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So a couple, quite a few thoughts here. I actually had a client that came to me that got you know hijacked by GTO and started playing all of this balance stuff, and he started like going through these thought patterns of on the river, right? He's playing against a guy, and the guy bets $1,000, and he's playing 5-10 or whatever. And so he has to call because he's top of range, otherwise he's exploitable, and he puts in the chips, and the guy has the nuts, and he loses, right? So, what I tell my clients, and what I think, and so we had to work on like literally like you know permission for him to play his old style, which worked better, and he went back to winning and whatever. But it was like this unraveling of all the things he's learned and been told. It's not like learning these things is bad, but application is more important than theory. And let me give you an example. So if um, you want to be the best poker player, the best theoretical poker player, um, it would be like saying, okay, I'm going to take a poker quiz and I'm going to prove that my knowledge is better than your knowledge. But for anyone that's been to business school and tried to run a business, knowing all the theory of business is a lot different than running the business. So in poker, what GTO is it's like a big quiz at the final exam of university. And yes, you could be a theoretically better poker player if you can score higher on that quiz. But that's what GTO is. It's the quiz at the university. And so it's important to know the theory, right? Like, you could argue it's important to go to business school to know, business theory and all the stuff that you need to run a business. But it's not the application of running that business in the real world. So the only thing that matters in live poker or in any poker game is um, is making the best decision possible. And the best decision is not the one that scores the highest on the quiz. It's the one that maximizes the value or the EV of that unique situation. And so, because poker is very much a game of people, people aren't balanced. And so the assumption of GTO is that your opponent's going to be balanced, and that if you don't play GTO, then you will be exploited. But GTO is very much a loss minimization strategy. So if you use rock, paper, scissors, and you were to play perfect GTO, you would randomize between rock, paper, and scissors equally 1/3. So you'd throw 1/3 rock, 1/3 paper, 1/3 scissors. But if you were playing against someone else that was good, they would also do the same. And so your goal playing the game in the first place, right? Your goal to sit down at the rock, paper, scissors table would be to break even. So it's a risk or it's a loss aversion strategy, right? So GTO takes the assumption that your opponent is also playing GTO and he's perfect and you're perfect, and therefore the best you can do is break even. So my challenge to everyone that's trying to implement GTO as a way of playing poker is, why are you playing in a game when your goal is to break even? Your goal should be to maximize your edge. So if you were playing rock, paper, scissors and some dude threw rock 50%, well, you'd be an idiot to throw rock, paper, and scissors 33% each. You should throw paper 50% and exploit that he's throwing rock. And if you're in a game where your opponents are throwing equal rock, paper, scissors and you're in the poker game equivalent, you're in the wrong fucking game. So 99% of people are not in that game because games like that don't exist, even though, I play high stakes poker. They still don't exist. There's certain spots against certain players in certain games where a risk minimization frequency strategy is correct. So, for example, if you're against a player that you play with often, and the meta game is important, and or you're in a very tough spot on the river, and you have no history, and you have no read, and you have no option to make any sort of better decision other than what GTO or Nash Equilibrium says, you might decide, okay, based on my blockers and based on my hand and based on this part of my range, this hand would be a fold by the book, and so as a last resort, I am going to do what the book says, and because this is the best I can do. The best I can do is what the book says because I know if I do what the book says, I'm not losing. But you're a human. The other person's a human. you're supposed to be better than them, or smarter than them, or more advanced than them, or have better strategy than them, or be able to read them better, or understand their mood or their psychological state better, or their ranges better, or their frequencies better, or their bet sizing, or their bet patterns, all these other things. You're supposed to be able to use one of those, 10, 20, 30 variables to gain at least 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%, 20% edge. And when you have that, you now have information asymmetry, and you should use that to make a better decision than what the book could do. So that's how you maximize your EV in poker. And in tournaments, um, it's it's all about that, because you don't play with the same people often enough. But even in cash games, you fly into Vegas for the weekend. If you're worried about balancing your range on the river in a 3-bet pot, you're only in a 3-bet pot, on the river 2, 3, 4 times a session, and you might not ever be in that spot against that person ever again. So you're never going to reach your long run. You're never going to have your long-term EV be realized in that spot, certainly against that opponent. And so whether you have balance in that hand versus that opponent, and then balance in a different hand versus a different opponent in a different casino, those things don't matter, because those opponents are different and they don't know each other. So it doesn't really matter that, your balance. What's much more important is what your perceived range is, what people think about your range rather than your actual range. So that's a lot more important. What people think you have is more important than what you actually have. Yeah, so I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I appreciate that. That definitely makes sense. Sherry, one for you in event number 5 at the Beau Rivage last week. I had aces, lost the jacks. When he flopped the jack, it was all over but the crying.
I'm sorry. And my journey of jacks is not only when I have them, it's when my opponent has them.
Absolutely.
And I keep losing in big spots. Either I have them or they have them. And so anybody that knows me knows that for the last 10 years, I have just told people, just fold them, suckers.
Yeah, I wish my opponent would have folded them, but he didn't.
No.
And Alec, I'm sure you get asked about this a lot, but that famous quote from the infamous Phil Hellmuth that said, "Kid, that was not many people on the planet that would have made that move." How
Oh,
much
yeah,
did
I
that,
appreciate that.
how much did that boost your ego back then, man?
He's referring to a hand where I folded 3 of a kind on the flop
I
facing a
know
single
that.
raise. Yeah,
I know the hand. It was.
it was a cool moment. Starting out in poker. So the first book I read was Play Poker Like the Pros, and the second book I read was Super System. So at that point, I had that experience with Doyle, and then to be on the table with Phil, and then Phil, makes me that compliment, like only a few people in the world can make that fold. It was just another one of those moments that really stuck with me, where it was like, it's just sort of surreal to think, you read this guy's book, and you hear that he dropped out of college with $20,000, and I was in college too, and I'd saved up the same amount, and so I was like, wow, he did it, and maybe I'm in the same spot he was when he was at that point, so maybe I can do it too. And then I dropped out of college too, and then that maybe whatever, that was when I was 18, and then here I am 24, 25, 26, whatever, playing on Poker Night in America. Maybe I was 28 or something, I don't remember, but it was just a surreal moment to like. It was one of those moments in life when I actually stopped to like step back and reflect on, how much that would have meant to the 16-year-old me that was reading that book, and how far I'd come. And, it's not often you get those experiences in life. And it was just really humbling to be able to check in and say like, wow, like, yeah, just a really cool moment. Yeah.
Yeah, great moment for you, man. I could tell in your
Yeah. Thank
face
you.
as soon as he said it. But man, I appreciate you being here and sharing your experiences.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being here and listening.
Thank you, Ryan. Anybody else, hit that microphone request button in the bottom left corner of your screen. Come on up and ask a question or give us your comments. We certainly appreciate Alec's time this evening. It's been a pleasure, Alec, and
Likewise,
hopefully
guys.
our paths will cross in real life sometime soon.
Yep.
Appreciate you being here. Brian, you have anything else, bud?
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Alec, for joining us, and thanks Todd and Brian and Steve, Karen, everybody else, Ryan.
Yeah. Brian, Sherry,
Yeah.
Todd.
I'm going
Thanks
to tell
everybody.
you, I'm going to stop you for just a minute, Alec. Merv has come up. He has a question or comment. So, Merv, please meet Alec.
Hey, thanks, Sherry.
Hey, Murph.
Hey, Alec, we have met before. Post Flop Poker Podcast, episode 92.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I remember. Now I'm pulling up my Twitter and I recognize the voice. Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Nice.
How are you going?
Hey. Nice seeing you again.
You've weathered the poker haters for quite some time now, so you're doing well in that job. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed today.
Thank you.
I only just saw it, so I'm obviously popping in at the end. But yeah, I hope you had
Nice. Okay. Cool.
a good time with Sherry and Brian. They always put on a nice space, and it's always run pretty well. Yeah. Oh,
Definitely. Great to be here. Yeah. Appreciate it.
can I throw in a?
Appreciate you, Murph.
Thanks, Sherry. If you've got time for a quick question about a tournament coming up, Alec?
Go ahead. Shoot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So I've bagged a $180 buy-in, 150K guarantee on the first flight, 39,000, and we're coming back to 25,000, 5,000, and 5,000. So effectively, I've got about 6 bigs for the day too. So
Okay.
if you were popping in, and assuming I'm not really buying into another flight, that was my sort of one shot at it. So I'm in there for 39K. Any words of wisdom would be appreciated because I'm collecting them over there. We've got another couple of weeks before all the flights are finished. So yeah.
Okay. Are there any so when you come back to day 2, like, are you in the money or what's the like payout structure? Because that could affect your play quite a bit.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we'll probably come back with about maybe 200 players, and I'm suspecting the top 100, 110 might pay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're not going to make it by folding. So let's
Exactly.
be honest. So I mean, and I have no affiliation with them, but you want to download Preflop Plus, the app, because you're not going to play creative poker. You're going to play push fold poker, and so um, you have to be very mindful of your ranges in short stack play, like which hands to shove, which hands to call a shove, which hands to reshove. If you get your stack up to 12, 15 bigs, you can have a reshoving stack. So you want to practice all those micro, kind of tedious spots with 6, 8, 12, 15, 17 bigs, because that's going to be your journey. If you do, hopefully, and I hope you do, get up to 30, 40 bigs, it's going to be through a 6, 8, 12, 15 big blind stack. So you want to make sure you're playing those stack depths very well. And Preflop Plus, and we have a module of this in our membership, but it's an app where you can enter your stack depth, in big blinds and your position, and you can enter the action ahead of you. So like if someone raises, it'll tell you which hands to shove with or call with or whatever. If someone shoves, it'll tell you what to call with, and if everyone folds, it'll tell you what to shove with. And so that's going to be the style of poker you're playing. So you want to really, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. You want to really be prepared to get lucky and to put yourself in an edge over the field. Now remember those ranges are GTO, so you might want to shove a little bit tighter or a little bit wider than GTO based on your table and the exploitative things that are available to you. But you're going to have to play that style.
Yeah.
And then as you get closer to the money, hopefully you do, like there's ICM and there's tournament strategy and it's going to be plus EV for you to fold and get in the money. But the bigger picture is you're playing $180 buy-in and first place is whatever 30K. So thinking about how meaningful caching is to you and how your bubble strategy is going to be, like whether you want to really gamble and exploit the bubble and try and double up or win a lot of chips at the risk of busting because you don't make your cash back, but if depending on how important that cash is, the min cash is to your bankroll, you might want to take that risk and say, you know what, I might forego the $250, $300, but I'm going to put myself in a position to have a stack that could run me deep because I'm only playing for final table type of money. So that's the second thing I would consider as you chip up your stack to 18, 20, 30 bigs. And then when you get close to the money, being prepared ahead of time for what your bubble strategy is going to be could really dictate the rest of your tournament.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you got your run to the final table, but But one thing in
One thing at a
the other.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. That's
Yeah.
great. We actually had Pre-Flight Plus as one of our sponsors for a while for the podcast. So I
Nice.
have got I know I've got a free version. Not sure if don't think I've got the Plus version, but yeah,
Yep.
that's a great reminder. It's always sitting here on my phone, ready to use, and I never use it enough. So thanks for that little prompt reminder.
Yep. Nice. That's easy
Thank you,
to have.
Merv.
Yep. Go ahead. Good luck to you. Hope you final table and win. Yep.
Thanks,
Good
Al.
luck, Merv.
Thanks, Sherry.
Goodbye.
Appreciate you. Alec, thank you so much, and good luck with all your endeavors, and of course on the felt, and take care of that lovely bride. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me. And yeah, everyone that I didn't get a chance to talk to, come say hi. You know, I'm on Twitter. I'm very active. So come say hi. And yeah, best of luck on everyone's poker journey.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us and spending your evening with us. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.